meeting to order. Sorry for being late. No one's here. Minutes, I thought they looked fine, but
There's one edit. I had Jeremy marked as absent on the attendance sheet, but he was, in fact, in attendance via Zoom, so that will be
Good
corrected.
detention. Art detention.
thanks. So, motion to approve the minutes with that change?
Motion to approve as amended.
Sec- Oh, somebody's seconding, okay.
I wasn't here, so I shouldn't
Okay.
be doing that.
Why don't you just second something before the end of the year? You know?
I will, but not that, because I was absent. Sounds good to me.
Swear I was here.
Did someone second?
Yeah.
Oh, great. All right,
I think
all
it
in
got stuck
favor?
in my throat, but yeah. Aye.
All right, great. Aye. All right. Moving on to discuss the matching grant program for next year.
Oh, yeah, that's already, okay. So, last meeting, you'd kind of started providing some feedback on any changes you'd like to see to the Public Art Matching Grant Program. So last year, this was released in May. I think in prior years, it's there have been up to 2 funding rounds a year, but typically always a round in the spring and have been released around March typically. So wanted to kick off the discussion and just kind of get direction, make sure we're on the right path before we launch into the 2024 program. So hopefully you've had a chance to see your packet and review. I kind of put in there some kind of an outline of the program for 2024 and any changes that I've heard from your feedback or notes that Wendy Ford had last year. And I think today the goal would just be to kind of talk through this and approve and give me direction to go ahead and prepare this for release on whatever timeline we decide. So I think you can do it one of 2 ways. If everyone's had a chance to review and there's comments that people have, we could do it that way. Or if you want to kind of walk through each of these little sections in the document in your packet, we could do it that way either.
So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, are the highlighted sections things that are changed or new from the previous version?
That's
Okay.
correct,
That-
yep.
That is what I figured, but I wanted to make sure.
The only question I had was for the due dates. I know sometimes we have to extend things, so do we usually have provision for that in these documents, or even though it says things are due a certain date, like we can still extend it?
Yeah, I mean, you can extend it. I guess it would just depend upon what prompted you to believe that we need to extend the period. Did we not get
Yeah.
enough applications
Okay.
or that kind of thing? So,
Can we put this up on the screen? I'm just having a hard time with seeing things on my phone.
unfortunately, I do not
Oh, okay.
have a computer here to put it on the screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Go get copies if you need me to.
That'd be great. We just
Okay.
can't see it on our phones. It's really blurry.
I don't know why.
And mine keeps
It's real
blopping.
slow.
Yep, yep.
Weird today.
Burping.
Usually it works so well. Could have brought my computer. Oh, I hit a few things.
I think we've gone too far. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Never mind, Rachel.
We figured it out.
I was interested in the bus stop stuff.
Do you comment to be recorded.
Rude. It's just like, what happened on my birthday?
So there's no change to the rubric, right? It's just these highlighted.
I think the rubric could probably use a check-in.
It does. Yeah, I definitely want to have, eligible expenses like detailed materials and supplies necessary, something to, because we just had like art materials,
Materials,
you know?
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it sounds like we might need to walk through it.
So Jeremy, was your comment about the timeline the like application submission or just or was, I know there's a
Note farther back about having things completed within the 2024 calendar year.
Both of those, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think, I don't have a problem with the timeline per se. I do like the idea of us, having the one round of matching grants, which we have been doing, having that as sort of like the early, or kind of spring thing, and then we move into the sculpture showcase kind of process a little bit later. And then I think that I like it as far as the general kind of maybe rhythm of the committee, and then using maybe fall to go over, policies, rubrics, et cetera. Not directly related, but I sort of like the way that a rhythm could be going with assessing things.
I also think some of the things that came up, and I don't know where this would go, but that, some inquiries have to be made about location and maintenance, and, because a lot of the projects got sort of put aside because, they wanted to be someplace where that wasn't possible for public art, or there wasn't any kind of a maintenance plan for a piece that might involve like plants or other elements, it just seemed like, where are those plants coming from? Who's taking, who's tending the piece?
And there's a little bit about that
there?
on the last page, but I'm wondering if, like, I had a comment about, should we, like, and you identify potential risks to this crazy spiky thing
Right.
that looks like, why would you jump on it, but you never know. But there is kind of, I'm wondering if we could, I don't know, tighten that up
Okay,
or
well,
something.
yeah, maintenance requirements.
Or, on the second page at the bottom, the list of project partners, collaborators, and role, including authorization from relevant city staff if necessary. For example, if a project is proposed in a public park, maybe that could also just say from relevant city staff or property owner, like if it's proposed on private property.
Okay.
I have a question about, so it says those that advertise, promote, or gain in any way from for-profit business. So what if this is a matching grant, so does that include listing your sponsors? Or 'cause if the sponsor is a private business, then,
You mean like on the piece advertising that this was sponsored by?
yeah, with something that's matching,
Yeah.
usually there's some lists.
I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anita, you maybe had brought this one to my attention or to add, but I don't think the intent is to dissuade them from, communicating who helped sponsor the project, but it's more just like that our piece itself should not be driving business to a certain for-profit business. Is that correct? Am I
Yeah,
understanding?
it shouldn't be an
Okay.
advertisement
Okay.
for a business.
Okay.
You know, it may be a business is involved, but it shouldn't be like
Never.
promotional purely.
Because I feel like we had one application was like, hi, can you help me like build a lean-to onto the back of my business, and I can hold classes there or something.
Oh, yeah,
There
yeah.
was
That's a good
And
example.
then there was also just
The
like
soap
an
making,
advertisement in the, in the Ped Mall for a location elsewhere that just seemed like,
Yeah.
that's not really art, that's advertising,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
Yeah, I think the key is if it's separate from, like if it's sponsored by somebody else, that would just be very distinct and separate and
Okay. Yeah.
So I wanted to get clarification from you, Rachel, on the review process in terms of, like, clearly there's the Public Art Committee, but it also sounds like perhaps that the way it's worded, that it's kind of like we can score things, you will put together the scores, but ultimately as a staff member, be making the ultimate decision about things. So I guess it seems like it's one of those things where I'm sure city staff in some cases, commissions and committees, and a lot of people in cat herding, that might be ideal. But I guess I'm kind of wondering, it just, as I read it, it's a little bit troubling as is, and I don't think that's how you mean it. And,
Yeah, that's not what I intended at all. So,
So I guess I was just like, ooh, that feels really feisty, but then I'm also like, ooh, controlling public art in town sounds fun too, and it's an empower way.
sure. So I'll clarify what I meant by this. So I had heard feedback from one of you that the kind of evaluating the applications during the meeting was not maybe the preferred way of doing it.
No, it should not be. I don't think it should be.
So what some other kind of how some other grant programs operate in the city, and what I was proposing would be that all the applications come in,
Right.
I send them out to you with the rubric. You can go ahead and fill in the score on that sheet, send those back to me, and then I would put everyone's scores together, say these ones scored the highest, and then just bring that back to you. I wouldn't have like a recommendation. I would just say this is how they ranked.
Okay, so like the way Wendy was rolling with things. Okay.
Okay, is that how she was doing it? It wasn't clear to me.
Yeah, it was kind of
Yeah,
like,
okay.
here's what came out with the average, and then,
But then we have a discussion.
yeah.
And that, I think, because we're kind of hashing things out, and we
Yep.
do want to, if somebody inquires, we do want to provide feedback, but it shouldn't be a minute-by-minute
Yeah.
conversation. It
So-
should be
so the
feedback
cons-
too.
I'm sorry, the concern with number 2 then is the parent and funding recommendation?
yeah, because I feel like it's the way it's worded, it's kind of like,
So
Here's what
basically
we wanna
strike
do.
the parent and then we'll be,
Yeah.
okay. all
but
right.
no, the rankings that
The
Wendy has been doing.
parenthetical statement in the middle.
And funding recommendation, that's the issue,
Oh, I
right?
see, okay.
Yeah. It's a little like,
Right, to
ooh.
present a ranking of applications at the April 4th
Gotcha,
meeting. It's
okay.
like, it's and funding recommendation, that's the issue.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, no, that was not my intent. I apologize for that.
Thanks, Ron, for clarifying my rambling.
Yep, no,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Appreciate it.
Anita, is there additional concern about how we, like after the rankings are presented to us during the meeting, is there a concern about the discussion that happens to sort of say, is this, so we're going to take the first top 5, 6, that's usually the discussion, and, oh, even though that one scored high, feels like it's disqualified for this reason, or whatever, like, is there a problem? Do you have a concern about that process that we've been doing?
Well, I do, in some ways. I mean, the Iowa Arts Council doesn't do public discussions or regarding the merits of their grant applications. I appreciate transparency, but I also appreciate having to sort of hash out things and then provide feedback.
So how would that decision be made, just purely by the rankings?
No, but just not a conversation, a recorded conversation.
It's, I think the recording, I mean, I've noticed that with certain, a little bit of censoring or sort of not wanting to say
Yeah.
something that I've thought, and then it's always a relief when someone else says it. And being the brave one to do that on camera.
But I think it's also to protect applicants. I
Yeah.
don't know if they necessarily want the public broadcasting of.
Yeah, I can appreciate your concerns. I do not feel comfortable with having like a behind closed doors conversation to fund the applications. I think if you want to build in more ways to provide like comments that then I can share out kind of as I like compile it all together. But I do think there's not only value, but it's important for transparency that you have that conversation in a public setting for final funding recommendations. But I appreciate, your concerns about how it might stifle conversation. So maybe we can think through how the scoring process could accommodate that.
I was wondering, like, if we could, provide on our score sheets some sort of comments to, like, work through some of that. But would those be made public, or is it just you have a yes or no, and whatever is sort of recorded? Or do the individual score sheets get made public as part of public record?
Yeah, I mean, everything you
Okay.
do it becomes public record ultimately. It doesn't mean I have to include it in the information packet or anything like that, but, and for what it's worth, whether it matters to you or not, I mean, with like climate action grants or neighborhood and housing, like social service grants and all of those, a lot of those do play out in a public setting and kind of a public process, at least partially, so there's precedent. That's how it happens.
But then I always think how many people actually watch the public art, recording, but.
You might
How hot
if
are
you had
we?
applied. No.
That's true.
Right.
That is true.
I have just a question, clarification regarding the who can apply section. The first bullet point being organizations, schools, and individuals located within Iowa City, and then the second bullet point being individual artists. What is the difference between an individual located within Iowa City and an individual artist in bullet point 2?
Let's see.
And does someone have to reside within Iowa City to be eligible?
So I'm thinking of like my neighborhood association, they applied for public art matching funds, right? So an individual did that, but they weren't the artist.
Okay.
So I think like something like that is what comes to mind.
Okay, but so, I guess the question then is, does an individual artist applying have to reside in Iowa City to be eligible?
Good question. I think that's for you.
I guess that would also apply then to bullet points 3 and 4, because those don't specify within Iowa City. We are a city committee. That makes sense that we would want to focus on artists and organizations within Iowa City. But we should make that clear in the application so we don't waste anyone's time.
So should it be who can apply, residents of Iowa City, and then bullet point organizations, schools, and individual artists? Like, would that?
Sure.
Rather than constantly saying Iowa City.
Yeah, I know people who say, for example, live in Coralville, but work and volunteer with organizations based in Iowa City. And the organization itself is based in Iowa City, but the individual is not.
Or if the art is intended for downtown Iowa City or something, but the individual lives in Coralville.
Yeah.
Well, if the nonprofit's in Iowa City, then it would be.
Well, but if it's a nonprofit wanting to place something in a park, for example, and they get approval for the park, but yeah, I guess the clarification on whether someone, the individual or who has to reside within Iowa City to be eligible.
So, yeah, it's almost like the first point would be, and then the following 3 would be second bullet points.
Such as
Yes.
artists, nonprofits.
That could be, yeah, or just indent those bullet points so they fall underneath the original.
Right.
But you want to limit it to only those with it, like, that have an address.
That has not been what we've done in the
Okay,
past.
yeah.
So what,
We have not limited the projects to be only from artists within Iowa City.
art for Iowa
Art
City.
for Iowa City, right? We specify where it has to be, right? I think we have a preference of local artists, but we don't limit it to Iowa City artists
Yeah.
only.
And we can totally, and then we can just strike the requirement that they be within Iowa City from the first
There you
bullet
go.
point.
Yeah,
I
that
just want to make
seems-
sure we're on the same page with what's required for applicants.
I agree.
So then do we want to list somewhere else? Oh, my goodness. we're So in the move.
Holding too still and.
Have to go in the center of the room.
This conversation has not been heated enough to keep.
Yes. Be a little more animated. Or-
Do we want to then specify in some other way that work should be, or it should in some way benefit Iowa
It's
City?
in the
It's
eligible
eligible
proposals.
Yeah.
proposals.
Has to be within Iowa City.
First
The-
bullet
the-
point there on the
The
first page.
location.
Or on the eligible
Okay,
proposals.
so it's already there. Okay, good. That's okay.
So then the idea then is we just want to strike within, or located within Iowa City from that first bullet point.
Got it.
Great.
I also kind of wonder, under nonprofits, and then the point about influencing public policy, like, so if a nonprofit is doing advocacy, does that come under influencing public policy? If it's a piece of art that, like, promotes a public good, like transportation or housing or something like that, does that?
Composting.
I
Climate change.
I mean, public art itself is a public policy. I mean, we're working on that right here.
Jeremy, can you point me to the specific place?
Yeah.
Right here. This one.
Proposals and expenses not eligible, and then it says, those intending to influence public policy
Third bullet.
or evangelize a belief, and then, so if nonprofits are able to apply, does the art have to be?
I think the proposal is intended not, it's not that the individual isn't an advocate or that nonprofit doesn't advocate for things, but the art itself is not intended to influence public policy or evangelize a belief. It's more about the proposal than the proposer.
Right, but I mean, if a nonprofit's applying and they do something about housing, does that mean that they're advocating or promoting a particular belief?
Well, I'm wondering if almost like instead of influence public policy, there's something, there's sort of advocacy and then there's sort of like lobbying, and it's not the same thing, but like advocacy can be wholesome and low-key.
Right.
Lobbying can get, gross.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sort of wondering if it's just a matter of semantics with this
Okay.
bullet point, but.
Well, and it might be just something that we vet
Or
as
yeah.
they come in through the rubric.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, okay.
Feels too subjective to be able to make a
Yeah.
bullet point of it.
I feel like I like the way Evangelize a Belief codes. I think that codes really well for public
Okay.
versus maybe religious intent. But yeah, there is that secular evangelizing of sort. But I do feel like something needs to be in there to just remind. I don't think we have a problem with it for the most part, but then it does feel like something needs to be there.
yeah.
But
I think the intent is clear enough that we can vet. I mean, that's been in there for a while, and I feel like
Okay.
we've gotten good proposals, so.
Other comments, and just want to confirm, we feel good about the funding amount, 15,000?
Speak up a little bit.
The funding amount at 15,000, are you all comfortable
That
with
was
that?
an increase from 10, or what was it? 12?
Last year, I don't know what you had agreed to. I was having trouble identifying how you agreed to an amount, but you funded, let me see.
We only funded 11,000 out of 15 or something like that.
I had 15, just
We
over
funded
15,000 that was
Okay.
funded last year.
I'm wondering if, like, I don't necessarily have a problem with the total amount, but I am wondering, given, the conversations we've had with various artists now, do we want to think about increasing the maximum to 4,000? That does mean fewer projects, perhaps.
Can we increase that? Do we have funding to increase the budget for this?
I recommended 15,000 because I think that is probably your max range. That gets you, with some of the other budget increases we've had with other projects, you're getting kind of close to breaking even, which is okay. I mean, some of that funding probably won't go out this year that's supposed to, but to be conservative and make sure we don't go over budget, I think 15,000 to me seems like an appropriate amount. If you want to increase the maximum grant award, that doesn't matter. That, again, as Andrea said, it just depends on how many projects you want to fund.
I think we increased it from 3,000 to 3,500 last year.
Yeah.
I don't recall that it made a huge difference in the amount of submissions we got,
No.
but
But I feel like we had like the Kiwanis Park thing, and I thought that was part of the matching funds. And it just ended up being, running into the issue of inflation with materials.
I mean, I remember being in favor of the increase, hopefully that it would bring in some more quality proposals, but also just that knowing that we have the, ability to say, let's fund it at less than the full amount
Right.
and fund more of them.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a notion to increase it to 4, I'd support it, but. Any other thoughts on that? Do you guys want to increase it to 4, or?
I think it's fine, just see what happens. I mean, I'd hate to prevent a really good project from going forward. And just, knowing a lot of the materials, like,
Yeah, 8,000. Saw it with the bus stop. It's not a huge amount of money for getting something built. So
I'm kind of circling back. Well, you can finish this one. Do we finish that? Do we decide? Are we increasing it?
I'm
Do we
neither
need to
here nor
vote?
there. I was just kind of wondering,
I'm in favor of increasing it.
okay, let's increase it to 4. What else?
If
were you
we
gonna
increase it to 4, then it's going to be up to 16 if, what if everybody wants 4,000?
They don't get it.
They get,
We
they
have-
get 3,700.
All right.
Did you have another?
Oh, I wanted to circle back to the point about organizations as schools and privately owned, operated businesses. Do we, or nonprofits, has it ever been a problem where you've gotten too many submissions from a single entity? Would we be willing to grant multiple funds to the same organization for different projects, or should it be is the expectation a single submission from an organization or an individual? Like, could I write 5 and see what you like?
Rubric have something about?
Yeah, that's a good question, Anita. I know, which I don't see as on here, but I think maybe last year or the year prior, you had established a new rule about reapplying if you've been previously awarded funds. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I did see a rule that said if you have previously received funds and have not completed the
Right.
project, you're not eligible to apply until you've completed that project.
Yeah. But putting a limit on how many applicants someone can put in.
I don't believe we've done that, and I don't recall that we've had that as an issue.
Hasn't been
Yeah, I
involved.
don't believe that's been an issue.
Nobody's tried to just sort of flood the process
Right.
with a bunch of
Not that I
proposals.
recall.
Not that we would notice
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
This is just a proofreading thing, but under submission requirements, bullet point 4, I think it's supposed to say a narrative statement to identify the target audience and to demonstrate that the artwork will be, just missing word there.
As far as like the safety, someone said something about safety. I think like with the bus stop project, we kind of ran into some questions about, contacting the different city departments about like a safety check. So I don't know if we should include something that says that if the committee think that there's a safety issue, that they would submit the project to the relevant departments and get a report back, or to take it off of the artist to have to do that.
But it's placed on the artist to contact the individual. I mean, if they want to, do it at a parking structure, they want, it's their, part of the requirement of the application to reach out and get that approval before they submit.
Okay. I guess I'm wondering if the artist should have to do that, or if the committee should.
The artist
do
is
that.
developing a project,
Okay.
right? And they want to locate it at a parking structure. It's up to them to contact the parking director to
Okay.
get that approval prior to submitting it.
Okay.
Because the struggle we've had in the past is that would happen. An artist would propose a project in a city facility somewhere, but they had never contacted the city facility or anybody in the city to make that, initial contact. And then it's like, well, how do we judge that?
Okay.
They should already have an initial contact, so if a safety concern comes up as part of the selection process, they should be able to go right back to that person that they've been working with. So that should make it fairly low barrier for them.
Okay.
At Iowa, for artists who make public art, back when we had the 1% for arts, they were required to carry liability insurance for a certain amount of time. I think it was 2 years or something. When you would
Is that in the agreement?
have a commission.
I'm not sure there.
Yeah,
I feel like definitely with the sculptor's showcase stuff.
For public,
Yeah.
for anything put on public property, we definitely require liability insurance. I don't know about private property.
I'd have to see what a funding agreement would look like for one of these projects. Like for a long term, I could see that, but if it's a short term, like 1-day event,
Oh, yeah.
it's going to depend on what the art form is.
So would that be part of the contract agreement? Like, if, because we have a 2-year, we have a. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Applicant maintenance commitment for at least 2 years. Where we're talking about intended duration of project or installation, including removal plan for temporary installations or maintenance requirements and plan for permanent installations. Permanent installations require applicant maintenance commitment for at least 2 years. I don't know, I'm just curious.
Yeah, the permanent installations requiring applicant maintenance commitment for at least 2 years was something I'd carried over from last year. I didn't know what the intent was behind that, or.
No, I think it's good, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering then, if it's a structure or just
Curious about what the policy was for that.
Yeah, so if there was we would run it past our risk manager and legal department when we're drafting that agreement, and then they would advise on what our insurance carrier would require us to then in turn require them to carry, and we'd write that into the agreement, is typically how it would work.
okay.
That was fruitful. Do we need a motion to proceed with this as amended? or-
Underneath the review process, in paragraph 2, it'd be 2024. There's just a date here or there, but other than that.
Okay. Well, if you're comfortable with this, do you want to see it again before it goes out in mid-January, or just make these edits and go from there? And you can make a motion to approve if that's how you prefer.
I motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for your work on this.
I do really like having that estimated budget, so you have to be a little more like, oh man,
Yep.
this material is something.
Yeah.
Wasn't that in there, though? A lot of people provided budgets. Not everyone did.
You did say to do items, right? Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Staff updates?
Staff updates. So I'll provide an update on our Lucas Farms Neighborhood Association RFP. So that went out a couple weeks ago, and I'll kind of review all the ways that we've pushed it out so far. So we sent it to both our general city and public art email lists. So that's about 11,000 subscribers total between those two lists. It's been shared directly with University of Iowa student and staff faculty, Native American Council and organizations there. The Meskwaki Nation Media Service agreed to send it out. They that's basically a media service for the Sauk and Fox tribe in Iowa. So that goes, they, I think, issue whatever their communication is once a month. City did social posts on Facebook, Nextdoor, Instagram, and then, of course, Lucas Farms Neighborhood Association is sharing it out however they do so. And then we've had individual contacts with just people we know of in the Indigenous communities. So just kind of pushing it out in any ways we can kind of think of. So that's everything we've done so far. Hopefully you all are helping to push it out too in the ways you can. So far, I've only received 2 applications, but maybe people are just getting their documents together, and it closes on January 11th. So we'll see.
The only other place that I would think for a little bit more statewide coverage would be the Iowa Arts Council. When they would send out their newsletter, would have like lists of opportunities
Okay.
at the bottom, and then you could kind of add to them. Now, I don't know how that's changed now that they've been kind of subsumed by the Economic Development Authority, if that has changed anything
Right.
on their front end, but
Okay.
Bless you.
Okay, any questions about that one, or we'll kind of wait
I'm
and
impressed
see?
you have 2 applications already if it's
Yeah.
not due till January.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, South District Bench Project. So I've been communicating to the emerging artist and artist mentor, and the expectation that for them is that they are putting together their kind of final budget based on the new amount that we've granted them, an updated timeline, and then meet with me and we can kind of develop a process for how we're going to keep making progress and just keep track so that I can help keep you guys updated on what the status is, and we can always bring them back if we feel like they need to present to the Public Art Advisory Committee. So we will have to amend their agreements as well once I kind of get that back from them, and then we'll just kind of go from there. But any questions about that? Hopefully we can get to a spot where we can keep that project moving forward. So we were talking about this a little bit before the meeting with a couple of folks who were here, but hopefully you saw the news about the Americans for the Arts, Arts and Economic Prosperity Study 6, which was released. If you haven't, many local news outlets did stories on it, or you reach out to me and I can share the actual report itself with you. Just some highlights. It showed that In Johnson County in 2022, there was about $32 million in arts and culture-related economic spending and 500 jobs. So that includes everything from local venues and arts organizations to festivals and events related to the arts. And then the downtown district did kind of like a more focused study, and they had $20.4 million in economic spending. So
Would you send that?
sure, yeah. Yeah, I should have included in the packet, but I'm happy to send it out to everyone.
Yeah,
But it's great.
really nice, like Johnson County's in on that now versus just Des Moines. Des Moines' been reported on for the last couple, if not longer, so I'm like, oh, Johnson County's in on the action.
Yeah, and the Englert Theater really took the lead in managing that and getting us in. So if you know anyone there, say thank you, because I know it was a big lift for them. But it's great data to have, and hopefully it's helps you really feel that impact that you're having in your roles and volunteer roles here. Okay. Other thing I wanted to mention, next Tuesday is City Council's next meeting, December 12th, and on that agenda is appointments for 2 of our upcoming expiring terms. So Jenny, I know your term is ending and you do not plan to reapply, so we just want to take a moment to thank you so much for all of your service. And hopefully you've enjoyed your time, and if you want to share anything, you're welcome to. And then we've only received 1 application.
Oh.
So we may see Steve back here. Typically what happens, so there's 2 vacancies. Well, there's technically 3 with Eddie resigning. But that one will just remain open until filled, so until we get enough applications to appoint in that position. So for the 2 expiring terms, which are Steve and Jenny, it's really how council wants to handle it. So with the 1 application, they can choose to make that appointment and then go back out for the other vacancy, or they can just decide to hold off on making the appointments at all. So I don't know how they'll do that, but we'll see on Tuesday, and hopefully we'll see Steve back here. But thank you all.
Guys to reach out to colleagues and stuff to apply.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not the deterrent for people applying. Like, no, Rachel. That's all I had for staff updates, unless you guys have questions about anything.
New or old business, is that, I don't remember that one being on the agenda before. What does that mean?
Oh, I thought it was always on the agenda. I apologize.
been
This
there.
opportunity for anyone to bring up anything
Anything
else,
else?
new or
No?
old.
Okay. Great.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.